Hi everyone. Normally on this channel I like to create videos on deep theological topics, but today I felt to share something that God has been doing in my heart over the last couple of weeks. Sometimes we can go about life and we acknowledge God to a certain degree, but if we're perfectly honest, we're too busy to genuinely sense God's presence in any tangible way. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of this modern technological world. We've all got so much packed into a tight schedule, and that was the same with me. I was getting caught up in the busyness of life and not slowing down enough to take the time to seek Jesus in any meaningful way. I wasn't doing anything particularly sinful with my time. I was even going about the Lord's work, and for the most part, I was putting my hand to the plough, throwing myself wholeheartedly into the work of the ministry the Lord had given me. In that regard, I was being faithful to the best of my ability. Obviously, I'm not perfect, but doing my best. And despite this dedication, I was still distant when I should have been living in an intimate relationship with God. So today I want to briefly discuss the vital importance of abiding in the Lord through a lifestyle of prayer and worship. And of course, this sounds great on face value. Oh yes, I want to abide in the Lord. I want an intimate relationship with God. I want to live a life of prayer and worship. But the problem is that there's practical steps that are required in order to see it come to pass. We must take the necessary breaks and put aside time for intimacy with God by slowing down the pace of the hectic pinball machine style lives that most of us get caught inside, in order that we can genuinely connect with our Creator. This is what I've done recently, and I'm all the better for it. I can guarantee you, you'll never regret making these decisions. You know, we can throw up quick prayers to heaven as we go about our business, and we can have worship music playing in the background. And sure, that's better than nothing, but there's a whole new level of spiritual life and internal blessing when we put dedicated time aside to truly go deep in praise and worship with Jesus. I'm talking about inviting him into the midst of your life as you focus your sole attention on him and his word. A time out where you create an environment where God's presence is able to inhabit the atmosphere. This will set up a spiritual climate where you are going to start sensing God's profound and deep love that surpasses knowledge. You can't explain it, but when you experience it, you feel so accepted, so cherished, so valuable, because of God's immense love towards you. That love was always there, but you just couldn't sense it. You couldn't feel it bubbling up out of your innermost being until you stopped what you were doing and began to worship him in spirit and in truth. All of a sudden, in the midst of everyday life, you can begin to experience joy unspeakable and full of glory and a peace that transcends all understanding. What this brings, first of all, is a true sense of self-esteem, because we can sense God's immeasurable love towards us and how valuable we are to him. This brings a healthy form of self-worth. And to be honest, this is what we all need to be a true representative of Christ on the earth. Because when we understand how much God loves us, yes, I'm talking about little old you and me, then we are able to love others properly, with the gentleness, meekness, and patience to treat others with kindness and unconditional love. You know, it says in the Bible that you can only love others as you love yourself. Remember what Jesus said? The second greatest commandment is this: love your neighbor as you love yourself. So you can't give out love to others that you don't already feel towards yourself. And you know, there's a drastic difference between the purity of loving yourself through the Spirit of God and being in love with yourself. Being in love with yourself is actually the self-centered, prideful, puffed up version, a demonic counterfeit of truly loving yourself, which can only come through the lens of God's love for us. This healthy form of self-worth, originating out of God's love, brings with it humility that values others as more important than yourself. But being in love with yourself is all about you. It's all about getting attention and elevating yourself at the expense of others. Look at me, how great am I? I'm the bee's knees. But when you know how much God loves you, you can be totally content, even if you are only ever in the background, doing things that are unseen. And for those deeds that are unseen, you are promised to be rewarded by your Father in heaven, according to Jesus. The Apostle John told us that we love because he first loved us. So we can't love ourselves properly until we first experience God's love for us. And we do that through prayer, praise and worship, and reading his word. And we can't love others around us until we have this healthy love for ourselves. This pure love that comes from God towards us is the only way we can still feel valued, but also treat others as more important at the same time. As Paul says in Philippians 2 verses 3 to 4, we'll do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, we will value others above ourselves, not looking to our own interests, but rather to the interests of others. When operating in this love, we will not be doing anything out of selfish ambition or prideful motive. Instead, we'll be operating in humility, and we know that God gives his grace to the humble. So we're going to be in a place of God's favour. In the Bible, James tells us that where there is envy and selfish ambition, there we find disorder and every evil practice. He also informs us that this worldly form of wisdom is unspiritual and demonic. But then there is a wisdom that comes from heaven. And this wisdom is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate and submissive, full of mercy and good fruit. James tells us that these are the deeds done in the humility that comes from the true wisdom of God, and that peacemakers who sow God's love in this way produce a harvest of righteousness. And isn't that what we all want? This all springs forth out of someone who saturates themselves daily in God's presence through a lifestyle of prayer and worship. As you begin to operate in this way, I guarantee you will experience less friction and less tension in the atmosphere around you. You know, that uneasiness when you're on edge, that can easily result in outbursts of anger and harsh words being spoken from the pettiest little things. But now you'll be able to keep your temper in all situations. In the Bible, Paul commands us not to be quick-tempered and implores each one of us, saying, keep your head in all situations. And how could anyone possibly do that without abiding in God's love? We all know it's impossible. So I believe that as you implement this as an ongoing practice in your life, you'll experience a new level of peace and self-esteem that will bring with it a new zest for life. You'll feel alive again. God's presence will awaken you to the reality of God's love, and you will be a new person. And I guarantee that you will begin to see miraculous changes as God's love transforms the relationships you have with those around you. God bless you all. I hope you've been inspired by this message. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.